And we're live. Paul, how's it going, man?
Really good.
Awesome, awesome. It's great to have you here. I know that we were meant to connect weeks ago, but you were on your little adventure down in the South. So maybe we start there. How was that?
It was good. I was down in sunny South Florida, and I travel a lot. So I'm in the studio now, and then I'm hitting the highway once we wrap this up. So I'm a traveling man.
Wow. So what's the cause? Like I saw on your Instagram that you're basically following some landscapers on their job, or what's the deal?
Yes. So there's a famous YouTuber. He has one channel has like 700,000 subscribers. Then his backup channel or second channel has like 500,000 subscribers, and he gets millions of views doing his he'll go out to someone's property and he'll clean it up for completely free and just give them a free yard makeover. So he invited me to come kind of shadow him, and he taught me how he makes the videos and things like that, because I wanted to try to make similar videos. So he taught me how to do that, and just collaborating with other leaders in my industry. So that was the reason I was down in Florida, and that's why I'm going to Alabama today. I'm rinsing and repeating that collaboration philosophy with a couple other creators who are out in Alabama. So
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, I think I saw some videos of him that, some people are like super grateful and some people are like, get off my lawn, and just, yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it helps the algorithm though. The haters that are
For sure.
they say crazy things in the comments, so it's wild.
Yeah. So maybe we start off with you telling a little bit about your story and how you started with with lawn care and just your whole entrepreneurial journey.
Yes, sir. So in 2011, I started a lawn care business. I knew nothing about business. I didn't know what a profit and loss statement was, what a balance sheet was, what an income statement was. I didn't know much about marketing. I was a newbie to the whole business world in general, but the predominant issue was I needed money. And so I had this idea that if I mowed grass and got paid money, because I did that in high school, I mowed my neighbor Frank's yard for $20. I equated that I could make enough money to make ends meet. I was fresh out of college and broke, busted, and disgusted, I'd like to say back then. So I started a lawn business, and I started quickly getting customers, and I was off to the races. But my first few years I was deep in the red because my prices weren't high enough. I was all over. I live in a major city, Atlanta, Georgia. I was going all over the place, and we have traffic here. I wasn't dialed into a targeted market. Again, my prices were way too low. I didn't know all the direct and indirect costs to running a successful business, and so I was just charging what I charged in high school. And but I fell in love with landscaping and lawn care. Like, I actually enjoy the satisfaction of cleaning up someone's property and making it look nice. Like, it's oddly satisfying to me. So eventually I started figuring out how to know my numbers and how to charge appropriately, and my business shifted into the black, and then the profit started exploding, and I started getting some really high-end residential clients. A lot of them were NFL football players and coaches here in Atlanta for the Atlanta Falcons, our football team, and my business just took off and started growing. And so then in 2018, I started a podcast, just kind of sharing my story, how I went from being a chuck in the truck where I didn't really have a good business to actually having a profitable business and a good reputation in a very high-end area of Atlanta. And I started sharing my story on my podcast. So now fast forward several years later, our podcast, we get a lot of downloads and things of that nature, but we have over 900 episodes, and small business owners, especially in lawn care landscaping industry, but we have other trades that are tuning in, learning how to know their numbers, how to do marketing, and how to really grow a profitable home service-based business. So it's been a wild journey, and I really love all things small business. So
That's amazing. There's so much to to uncover in what you just you give the abbreviated version of everything. But let's start with maybe like your first 5 clients, where a lot of people who are listening in thinking about starting a landscaping business. Like first 5 clients, how did you get those?
Yes. So what I'm doing, I'm not saying is the right thing to do, but I'm going to answer your question honestly of what I did, not what I'd recommend, but this is just what I did.
All right. So we'll start with what you did, and then you'll tell me what do you recommend?
What is appropriate. Yeah. So what I did, and again, this was 2011. So I think MySpace was still around. All right. Like Facebook was pretty new. Instagram just was starting. Actually, I think Instagram started next year. So anyway, there was something called Vista Print, and it was free. I went to Vista Print and I printed off these raggedy ghetto looking business cards that had some cheap little guy on a lawnmower, and it was embarrassing, but it was free. Like they had some promotion where they gave you like 500 free business cards, and I was looking at the website. I'm like, are you sure it's free? And then lo and behold, they literally sent me 500 free business cards. So it was called Vista Print. So I took these little ghetto business cards that had my name, email address, phone number, and the services I offered. It was way too busy, but I walked in the neighborhood I was living in, and I just put them, like jammed them on everyone's mailboxes or like in their front door. If they were like driving in the driveway, I would just hand them the business card. And then a lady named Maria, it's funny, I remember these people's names. Maria called me, Reggie, Mrs. Stewart. And so the people in the neighborhood actually started calling me, and I started giving them a quote, which again was too small. And ironically, one of the customers was a real estate agent, and she's like, hey, the guy that does our landscaping is in the hospital, and we have all these listings that need to look good for the open houses and showings and all that. And she's like, it's an emergency. She's like, can you come do our grass, cut our grass? I was like, yeah. So I started serving her, and then she had all these listings all across Atlanta. So I'm going all over the place, and that was the mistake I made. I thought, wow, I got all this business, but I was driving, and if you guys aren't familiar with Atlanta, Georgia, our traffic is horrific. It's like you can go 7 miles and it could take you 25 minutes. So
yeah, like the 5 in the West Coast in LA.
Oh yeah, that's bad traffic too. But the point was I was all over the place. So I did get a lot of customers fast, but they weren't my ideal target customers. I didn't figure that out till I was having coffee when I was kind of crashing and burning, like this isn't working financially. I met with a guy who'd been in the business for 18 years, Kenny, and I was telling him about my business. He's like, yeah, that's no good, Paul. He says, you want to pick one neighborhood, and because we have neighborhoods in Atlanta that have hundreds of homes in them. So like all you need is 20, 30 customers to pay all your bills. So he's like, just pick one neighborhood and just go inside that neighborhood and just stay in that neighborhood all day. There's plenty of work in one neighborhood. And he readjusted my thinking of I was going wherever the real estate agent was telling me to go. So that's how I got my first customers. And thankfully I started in the spring, which in our industry, the grass is growing, the bushes are blooming and growing. And the spring, the demand is peaking. It's so easy to get work in the spring in lawn care because everybody needs their grass cut and their bushes trimmed, and there's not enough reliable people to come and do the service.
Got it. So, okay, so this was like your way, and you gotta hustle when you're starting. Like you gotta hustle, especially if you don't have capital. You need to do whatever it takes. Now, if you would have started doing everything from scratch, how would you do it differently?
Well, first I would have identified the neighborhood that I wanted to get my clients from, because the neighborhood I was living in wasn't that nice. It was kind of ghetto. And so my customers weren't the kind of customers that I would have wanted to attract. So I would have first identified the country clubs, the nice neighborhoods in Atlanta where I wanted my business to be birthed out of. So I would have first identified that target customer, and then I would have started marketing to those customers. Now in Atlanta, we have something called a birdie box. So we have a USPS mailbox on top, And then underneath that, there's a birdie box, which legally you can put in postcards or you can put anything in there legally. Now, you can't open up the mailbox and put something in the USPS or you can be in big trouble. But I would just old fashioned, I would have a better printed material and I would put those in those mailboxes only in that neighborhood I wanted to work in. And I would do Facebook ads where you can direct target to that exact neighborhood. You can draw on Facebook and micro target to that specific neighborhood, because the neighborhoods here in Atlanta have 500, 600, 700 homes in one neighborhood, and just pick that neighborhood and then get the word out to the people in that neighborhood that you offer lawn care services. So that's how I would do it today. And I made that gigantic mistake of stretching myself thin on the wrong target customers. And eventually I got rid of all those customers, told the real estate agent lady that I can't serve her anymore. And I got to the big money neighborhoods here in Atlanta and focused on those neighborhoods only.
Yeah, but it's like you live and learn. And so unless you've had that experience and you went through it yourself, you would never know. So what I hear from your story is, first thing, you need to put yourself out there. It's like, even with this opportunity that eventually it didn't work out the way you hoped it to be, it initiated something, from you going out there and just putting out those business cards. All of a sudden you're starting, you're getting into the business. And obviously there's tweaks that are happening along your journey as you grow, as you understand more about the business. But the first thing you need to do is just like put yourself out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long did it take you to transition from like being all over Atlanta to figuring out, okay, I'm doing something wrong, I'm burning out, I can't serve all these clients, something needs to change? Like, how long did it take you to make that shift?
Well, the defining moment in my business was one day I was out mowing, and my mower, I put too much oil in my mower, and that caused the mower to shut down and it wouldn't start. And so I'm in the middle of my work day. I got a whole bunch of yards going on, and I'm not like a mechanic. I know the basics of how a lawnmower works, but I couldn't figure out why my lawnmower wasn't starting. And it was a fairly new X-Mark lawnmower, and I was like, this thing should be starting. So I had a friend who was working on an irrigation job in the neighborhood, and he's been in business for a long time. His name's Rich. And so I went over to the yard that he was at, and I was all bent out of shape. I'm physically, you could just see I'm frantic. I'm anxiety. I'm stressed. It's all over my demeanor. And Rich is cool as a cucumber. He's just chilling and he's just peaceful. And he could tell that I was very frantic. And he's like, "What's wrong, Paul?" And I was like, "Yeah, my mower's not starting. I got all these yards to do. I'm just stressed out. I'm just spewing all this negativity on him." So he's like, "All right, well, let's look at it." And he figures it out. He's like, "Oh, you put too much oil in there." And he dumped the oil out. We re-got it. The mower started up. I was like, "Thank you, God. Like, this is great. I got my mower back." And he said, I was leaving. He's like, "Hey, Paul," he said, "would you like to come over for dinner on Sunday night? And I can take a look at your business and help you out a little bit." And he's like, "I can tell you're struggling." I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, do me a favor." He said, "Bring me, print out your checking statements from the last 3 months for your business, like the just checking monthly statement." And he said, "And any other financial information you have about your business, bring all that to me, and I'll take a look at how I could help you." And he has owned his own business for a long time, but he also worked for the biggest landscaping company in the United States. So he knew how they ran their financials and how they monitored and absorbed all their financial statements. So I go over to his house and I throw all my checking account statements on his kitchen table, and I had some other like timesheets where I would check in, like what time I arrived at the customer's property, what time we got done. I was tracking my time, and I had all my data. And I set it on his kitchen table, and his wife's cooking great meals. It smelled delicious in the house. And he has a calculator and he has his glasses on and he's crunching all these numbers on his calculator. He's looking at all my financial stuff, which is, you feel like you're naked when someone's looking in how much money you have and
100%. Yeah.
account. And I'm sitting here sweating like, oh man, he's not saying nothing. He's crunching numbers and he's doing all this stuff. And about after probably a half an hour, it was like time froze. He looked up at me and he had his glasses on the end of his nose like you see in the movies, but it was like in real life he had them there. And he just stared at me with his glasses underneath, like on top of his nose, and his eyes were above the glasses. And he was just staring at me, and his wife like stopped cooking and she could like feel the moment. And he's staring at me and he says, "How are you paying all your bills?" And my heart like sunk. And I was like, yeah, I'm really stressed out. It's really tight right now. He's like, tight? He's like, I don't understand how this is working. He's like, how are you paying all your bills? And he's like, Paul, this is not good. And basically he's like, we got to figure this out. And so then like the next hour or so, we identified that I wasn't charging enough. My prices were too low. Because I was working. I'd leave in the morning and it would be dark outside, and I'd go and I'd start, by the time I got to the neighborhood, the sun rose, but I'd work all day long and I'd come home dog tired and the sun would be setting. Like I was working way more than 40 hours a week and I wasn't able to make my business work. And so anyway, he's like, you got to raise your prices and figure out like how to set your prices so that they're profitable, because you're providing the service and you're doing a really good job, but you're not charging enough. So that was the moment where I realized I had built a house of cards. Like I had built a business. I've gotten all these recurring customers, and I was doing a good job. Their properties looked good, but I wasn't charging them enough. So I had to literally go in and tell all of them I was raising their prices by 25%, which is a lot. And I lost some of them, but that started to turn things around when I got my pricing on point. And then I really turned the corner. And from there, it was kind of like off to the races. So that was a defining moment in my business when I had somebody who was credible.
You had a mentor.
Shoot me straight and just say, you weren't charging enough, because everyone else thought I had a good business. I mean, I was juggling it all. I was paying all the bills. I was doing everything. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't profitable like it should have been. And I wasn't paying myself as the owner. I wasn't properly paying myself. Like I was just running the business, and if there's anything left over, I kind of took it as is. And it switched me to actually having a line item. No, I'm paying myself on the first of the month, X amount every month. And then what that did is it really forced me to raise my prices, because I didn't have enough money to do that. And now I do, and I got margin and profit, and life is good.
Right. So how did you price initially, and what was the price after he walked you through? Like how did the pricing structure changed?
Yeah, so initially I was charging what I thought everyone else was charging, but I was comparing myself to the other chucking the trucks and standing the vans and amateurs in the industry, and they didn't know what they were doing. And what my mentor pointed out to me, he's like, do you notice that after 5 years, those guys kind of revolve? It's like a revolving door. They come and they go, and they come and they go, and they come and they go. Because for a few years, you can juggle it all. But he kind of pointed out to me, we have companies here in Atlanta. One of them's called Crab Apple. One of them's called Russell, Gibbs, Brightview. And at the time, they were called Brickman. He's like, do you notice how those companies have been around since you started and they're still around? It's because they're charging premium pricing and market value pricing, and their costs are very tight. They're not blowing money on anything. Like I was blowing so much money on just new shiny stuff that was unnecessary, and it made my cost too high, and because my prices weren't high enough, there wasn't the profit there. So he pointed all that out to me, and it really took me on a deep dive of knowing my numbers. Like when I spelled out all of my direct and indirect costs, and I actually knew to break even, I have to be earning X per man hour. And once I knew what that number was, I was like, whoa, I'm not earning that per man hour. And it forced me to do that. So just, I guess, overall knowing my numbers and truly taking the time. I had a friend, John Pajak, we were on the phone for hours, like plural hours, going through all of my direct and indirect costs throughout the year and figuring out what it actually costs to break even, just so I knew. So when I go out to quote a job, it's like I put my shoulders back, my chest out, and I tell Sweet Sue, here's the price, because I know I have to earn that to be in the black. And then my customers started taking me more serious. Not everyone signed up for my new pricing, but I knew what I needed to charge, and it changed everything. And to this day, you know, it's kept me in the black and keeping my profits growing by raising my prices and decreasing my cost, and not getting the equipment I need to get the job done, but not overpaying because I want to look cool on Instagram.
Right, 100%. And so that happened like few months after, or a year, you said, after
No, a year. I was working for years at a loss, and how I was able to
for years, plural.
years, yes. And how I was able to pay the bills is I had to get a second job. So I worked at the restaurant Carrabba's at night. So I would do lawn care all day, losing money, working my butt off, sweating. But because when at the end of the day, when you add up the truck payment, the storage unit, all the equipment, the repairs for the equipment, all the materials, you add all of that up, and what I was making was about the same. So
yeah,
what was left out was Paul wasn't getting paid. So what I would then do is I would go to Carrabba's. It's an Italian restaurant here in Atlanta, and I would work as a server at night, and I would serve pasta Wheezies and pasta Carrabba's, and I served, you know, the people their wine and chicken and steak, and I'd make $100 a night, or, you know, $150 a night on a good night, and then that money was like paying my rent and everything, because my business was a disaster. It was like the hamster in the wheel thing until I got my pricing raised. I was just wasting my time out there. I was perfecting the technique and the craft and getting really good at landscaping, but from a financial perspective, my first few years were beyond a disaster. If I didn't have that job, a second job at Carrabba's, I would have, you know, not been able to pay my rent.
got it. Yeah, it's very, you know, it's very unfortunate, and I think that every like home service business owner and in general, every business owner should read the E-Myth. Like I think that this book it changes your whole perspective on what your role is as a business owner versus someone working in a business, where, you know, most business owners are in that category of working in their business instead of working on their business and building it as a different entity than themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. So now you slowly like figuring out the pricing wise. How long did it take you to bring on a new a new person into the company to start mowing lawns and start doing some landscaping for you?
Yes. Well, we always had, you know, me plus other folks to get the jobs done, because these are big properties and things of that nature. So even when the business was struggling, I was still making sure I was paying the labor. So it wasn't like we grew additional laborers. We just got the operation more tighter and the pricing more on point, and that's what turned the corner. But I tried going to 2 crews, so it was just 1 crew, which was typically 2 or 3 guys, just depending on if we're doing an installation, like a sod installation or a mulch installation. We usually have 3 guys. And then if it was just a basic mow, edge, trim, and blow, sometimes we would use a 3-man crew, but a lot of times I found it was more profitable to do a 2-man crew. So I had tried going to multiple crews where like 2 or 3 of us were on one job, and then another crew was out on another job site. And it honestly stressed me out too much, because they were off just when I wasn't there, they were cutting corners and they weren't doing a good enough job. And then my customers would even tell me things, and then I was like, oh man, too much stress for me. So I never wanted to scale. I was like, I don't have any time for stress in my life. So I always kept it to 1 crew, but I had the business going and red, in one crew and then in the black in one crew. And I never had a desire. And these are, let me preface this because I don't know, I didn't want to be ostentatious, but my customers are famous. So it's like they drove Rolls Royces, Aston Martins, Ferraris. Like my one customer in his garage had a Lamborghini, and then he had this like car thing where the I think it was a Ferrari was stacked on top of it. And so these customers, and many of them were the the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, the captain of the Falcons. So some of them were clout like famous because they were star football players on the billboard, and other of them were business titans that had money. So I didn't need a lot of customers, and if I had, a customer complaining that, that my employee was doing something inappropriate, not like bad things, but just they weren't being professional and stuff like that, I couldn't afford to lose a customer because of that. So I was like, I wanted to be on the property and serve. I mean, these people had like tennis courts in their backyard and lived on lakes and just like, it was really nice properties. And so I couldn't trust someone else to take care of that for me. I had to be on there doing the work and making sure that they were well taken care of.
And did you figure out, like over the years, did you figure out a way so that you won't need to be as involved as you did, or still up to this point you want to make sure that you're on site in every big important job like this?
Yeah, there's several of us in this industry. There's a guy named Andy Mulder and my friend Naylor Taliaferro and myself. And there's like we're rare where we just want to be in the field, on the site, and we're there. So I'd say 90% of other companies in the lawn care business try to scale as fast as possible and get that second and third crew going and all of that. And I think because my mentor, multiple mentors, just shared with me the horror stories of when they did try to scale, of all because in the lawn business, the hardest thing for us is laborers. And it is just so difficult to get somebody to come out in the Georgia heat and mow grass when they could go work at Target or Costco and the air conditioning and get paid just as much as the rate. So when you have multiple crews and then someone quits, it's just like, it's so much stress because you still have the commitment to the customer, and it's really hard to fill that. So I just heard all these stories, and it's kind of like, I don't want to scale. I don't want that stress. So I'm rare in that sense of that, but I never from the beginning had a desire to scale past multiple crews because I just couldn't handle that stress. I already had enough stress.
Got it. Well, I can tell you from my perspective, and this is not like I'm an expert or anything on building systems, but I feel like, both through reading and through practicing it myself with my business and the businesses that I coach in our program, is that you can basically alleviate this stress by building systems around the way you're doing it. And I'm talking to not just you personally, but like to everyone watching, is that it's so hard to expect the same level of professionalism from someone who never mowed the grass for a multi-million-dollar home when they don't know what is expected and not expected from them. So whether it's, okay, you can't like have a really like a list of, you can't post pictures of yourself on the job on Instagram posing next to the Phantom or whatever it is, So like you need to always smile and greet the people who are coming in and out of the property. Like, and for us, a lot of time these things seem, it's like it's common sense, but it's not the same thing for everyone. And so if we want something done like professionally, we just need to basically document every step of the way of what we're doing and then communicate it in the best possible way to our employees. Now, it doesn't mean that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that they'll do a perfect job, but there's sort of a standard now that's being expected of them. And if they're just completely ignore it, well, maybe they're not the right fit for the company. Now, again, if you're good, personally, if you're good, like with the size of your company, it's great. But once you want to grow, like past 7 into 8-figure business, it's really hard. It's not really hard. It's impossible for you to do all the work yourself and be on site in every location possible. So this is just my 2 cents on this topic. And it's something that, again, I'm personally still learning and evolving and growing, in my journey as a business owner. But I know that it's a skill that I must master in order for the business to grow to where I want it to get.
Yeah, well, I really look forward to bringing you on my podcast so you can teach my listeners those proper systems and operating procedures, because most people in the lawn and landscaping industry want to do everything you just said and grow. And I just had a unique example because I had very high-end clients. So it's like, it wasn't like I could only have a few clients that would pay me enough money to be, set for what my goals were. And then I started my podcast, and that thing took off. And I had the biggest brands in our industry knocking on my door like, hey, when the Lowe's and the John Deeres of the world are saying, we want to work with you, and Kubotas and Toro, like all the main companies that we are using their equipment are wanting to do sponsorships and partnerships and fly me here and fly me there. I'm like, whoa, how do I navigate all of this? And one of my mentors was like, you need to slow down, because I say yes to everything. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then next thing you know, I'm at the doctor's office, like my physical body like shut down because I overdid it. So I had unique circumstances that I just had to like kind of put boundaries on. If I'm going to do the social media podcast, fly around towns, do that stuff, I can't also scale business. Otherwise, one of them is going to eventually be affected.
Get hit. Yeah.
So I had to kind of customize a plan for me that within the industry is a rare set of circumstances. But I absolutely want to bring you on my podcast to teach everything that you've learned from your businesses and your studies of how those systems are properly placed. Because I think when you talk about 7 figures and 8 figures and scaling, most folks want that route. But I had the self-awareness to realize that wasn't my calling for what I needed to focus on with the serving people through social media as well. And
like it takes me back again, like this story takes me back to my journey. When I started this coaching program, I was like you. I was making like $8,000-$10,000 a month. I didn't need much. I was living off of maybe 3-4. I had time to surf. I had all the leisure that I could hope for. But when I started my coaching program, my mentor told me, listen, you have to get rid of these people. I was like, why? Like, it's paying the bills. I'm literally doing nothing. I'm maybe spending like an hour a month on these clients and they're happy. But he told me something that goes with me, and probably will go with me to the day that I die, is that you can't really split your focus. And it's not just the amount of work that you're doing for them, but it's that RAM that's eating up your brain, and it sits in the back of the mind where you're like, you can't be 110% focused on your coaching business while you have those. And it was very, very hard for me to let go of that. But today, where I'm at with my business and where I want to go, it's probably the best decision that I've made for my company. And I can tell you again from this little short and a very brief discussion that we're having, that it's okay for you to have like different goals. And I think that a lot of times we fear that we'll have like this, how did they call this syndrome? Like the imposter syndrome, right? That now I don't have my lawn care business anymore. How could I have a podcast about, about landscaping when I don't have this business anymore. But you bring so much value to people, and you're, like you said, this is now your calling. And so if you focus 110% on that, you could easily grow with your personal brand into 7 and 8 figure, maybe even 9 figure. Like we see, Mr. Beast refusing like $1 billion offer and saying that he's evaluating his business at around 10 billion. So it's really like the sky's the limit, but we have to decide which route we're going and just go, just go heads on that route solely. It's almost impossible to go in 2 routes simultaneously.
Yeah, that's so good. And my transition period in 2020, the podcast started taking off. And I mean, we were ranked in the top 100 of business entrepreneur podcasts. So I'm literally, there's one day where I was looking at the charts, and a financial podcast named Dave Ramsey was ahead of me, and a guy named Robert Kiyosaki was below me. And I screenshotted it because I was looking at this chart, and I was freaking out because I know Robert Kiyosaki. I'm not like personally, but like I knew who Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki were, like because I consumed their audiobooks and podcasts. Of
course.
And so when I saw my name sandwiched in between their names, I literally freaked out. I'm like, you want to talk about imposter syndrome? I was like, I'm talking about building a lawn care company. I mean, these guys are out there talking about real estate and finance, which are popular topics. And I was like, how do I have a podcast about a home service-based business and my name's in between? Because Chartable puts out like the top 100 podcasts in each category. And I screenshot it and I sent it to my producer, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I need to take this more serious, because at the time I literally was still doing my home service-based business. And I said, I got to take this more serious. And I did. And so then 2020, I was doing both. But like you said, I wasn't reaching my potential in either. And then in 2021, because my clients were like family to me, I had to tell them it was very hard. I was like, I know this might not make any sense. You're the best customer ever. I can't say thank you enough. Like I had keys to these people's houses, their garage codes. Like I was like a property manager too, because a lot of them would have in and out of town, and I would like, this was just like a extra little thing I would do for them. But it was hard for me. But I told them like, hey, I got this really big opportunity. I've kind of blown up on social media, and I need to serve that audience. And I'm on a I gave him the next person. I was like, Alberto's going to take care of you. He knows your property like the back of my hand because he was serving them with me for years. He's going to take over. He's going to do a great job. And so like for the next year, I kind of held his hand as they figured out how to, pay him and do everything. And now they're all happy. Alberto's doing a great job. And now, like you said, I'm 110% focused
Beautiful.
on this new endeavor of serving folks who have lawn care and landscaping businesses and getting them the information that I didn't have early on to move the needle to profitability in their business. And so, yeah, it's been a crazy journey, but I agree 100% that when you're pulled in 2 directions, you got to just be singularly focused on one and go all in on that. I could not agree more. And once I made that switch, that's when everything started skyrocketing even more. So.
Definitely. So I want to talk to you about, something that you've experienced personally, and obviously, that's something that a lot of people, especially in the home service industry and contractors, they miss out on the opportunity of self-branding and its importance for growing your brand and growing your income and becoming like a 7 and 8 figure company. So walk me through how you saw personally that effect, of getting into, new opportunities, but also when you're looking at, successful figures in the lawn care and landscaping world, how do you see this plays out, and what's its importance as you can see it?
Yeah, so there was a couple of mentors of mine in this space. One guy's named Alan Hain. He's the Lawn Care Nut, and so he branded himself on YouTube as the Lawn Care Nut, and he would make YouTube videos and teach people how to make their lawn look great. And then he had a business model connected to that of the ebook he would sell of how to make your yard look pristine. And then he eventually started selling fertilizers himself. And he took me fishing one day and was telling me about how much money he's making and how he's serving his customers. And I was like, whoa. And then I was like, okay. And here's the blueprint to replicate that. And then there's a guy in the plumbing world. His name's Roger Wakefield. And he's a plumber from Dallas, Texas. And he started a YouTube channel, and he just started teaching people, hey, here's how you unclog a toilet, or here's what you do with this plumbing predicament, or things of that nature. And then he started getting sponsorships that were hundreds of thousands of dollars, and ultimately $1 million, deals, and from big plumbing manufacturers and things of that nature, all because he shared his expertise of plumbing on YouTube. And it just showed me, and Roger Wakefield really showed me, he was in a separate industry, plumbing, but it's very similar to lawn care and landscaping, that if you can prove yourself as an authority, like I got 14 years of experience, I can identify different types of grasses, I can tell you, what's the best landscape design for your property and how to make your grass look great. Like, I know all of this stuff, and there's millions of people out there that would love to know this information. And so the Lawn Care Nut and Roger Wakefield were light years ahead of me in getting their content about a specific trade on the YouTube. And of course, those guys are making millions of dollars, but it gave me hope that I can earn, 7 figures with my same passion for lawn care, but doing it in a way where I'm helping others through the internet. And I had visions, actually, because I had a map in my office of my local target area, because I wanted to be in this country club. That was my target customer. But now my target customers are all across North America, and the volume of customers I have now, and they buy my contract templates, and I have a price increase letter template, and I have all kind of I had an attorney write a contract that's really detail oriented for landscaping. And so for somebody to hire an attorney to write a contract, it could be, $1,500 or more, and I sell it for way less than that, but it's already got A to Z, everything you could possibly think about of doing a landscaping job. And so it's like, I'm saving people money and providing them what they want. So it's like, it's a really sweet spot to be. And I never would have imagined this 7 years ago when I was out there sweating my butt off, putting in sod, frustrated. But I also don't think I would have the sympathy that I have now to young business owners, because I would have just thought I was a hot shot. Like, that's how everyone else around me was. They were arrogant, and I was struggling. But now I literally have a sympathy, or just like, I want to help the guy in year 1 or 2, because I know how difficult it is. Unless you went to business school and you studied indirect and direct cost, and they taught you how to read a profit and loss statement and an income statement and a balance sheet. Nobody knows that stuff when they're just starting in the lawn care business.
Right.
So I have a compassion about me to help teach people the stuff that the successful lawn care businesses that have been around for a long time, they know all that stuff. But the average guy that's just trying to make some money out there, he doesn't know that stuff. So it's all kind of come full circle. And Gary Vaynerchuk was a big inspiration to me, because he's always preaching about sharing your content and things of that nature. And so even back in 2015, 16, I was on Snapchat, showing my work, not showing off the Rolls Royce and stuff, but just showing hey, look, here's a yard that I'm doing. And I just got in that habit of, my passion is lawn care. My passion is landscaping. My passion is making something look really beautiful. And I got in a habit of creating content. And Gary says this, you don't know, because I used to make stuff on an app called Musical.ly. And no one was really on Musical.ly back then. But then when TikTok...
That's before TikTok, yeah.
But I was on there making videos, and I was getting good at it. Not great, but I was learning how to do Musical.ly. So then when TikTok came out, I was already used to it. And then when Instagram Reels came out, I was crushing it. And now I don't want to say everyone's copying me, but I was a pioneer making content on Instagram Reels, showing my work and putting a trending sound and doing all of this. And then everyone just kind of, I don't want to say they plagiarize me, but they copy what I'm doing. They come to my page and see what I'm doing, and then they do it. But it all went back to TikTok, and then it all went back to Musically, and it all just went back to creating content. And my videos were flopping on Musically. It wasn't like I was getting a lot of views, but I was learning how to make content and stuff. So it's all come full circle.
There's few things I think you mentioned that are, you know, super important for everyone's listening. So one is buy time by paying someone else. You know, like when you're taking on a mentor, and this took me way too many years in the business world. Like my mentor is 22, 23, and he's like, you know, making almost $500,000 a month, like with his company. And there are people in the industry that are making, you know, like 7 figures a month. And it's just wild that these guys are so young. And the reason why they're so successful, and the reason why I'm advocating, not just because I have a coaching program, but because I'm a student myself, is seeing, you know, the 10 plus years that I've been an entrepreneur and business owner, and seeing the growth that I've went through just by paying someone else to give me the blueprint and show me the way, the correct way of doing things. This is priceless. I would trade money any day of the week and just get this information. So, you know, like you giving out these blueprints and these templates of contracts and stuff, these are lessons that are, you know, learned by, you know, giving sweat, tears, and blood into it. And just people, I think that in this day and age, people learn to appreciate and understand this informal like way of education and this, you know, like we can learn anything basically online, and you don't need a diploma in order to show that you really know what you're doing, and or to learn from someone is, you know, it's key. Second thing is, when you started off, you weren't good, right? Like with the Musically stuff, you said that your videos were flop, but you went and you were persistent at it. And even though they weren't good, you weren't saying, okay, that's it, I'm not good, let me just close this. I don't look good, I don't have a six-pack, I'm, you know, I have like my neck is burnt, whatever it is. Like, you know, we all have our biases and our prejudice against ourselves on why we're not, you know, like YouTube material or content material. And I see this all the time with service industry people. Is now my, you know, whether I have an accent or whatever story you're telling yourself, it doesn't need to be perfect. And to be honest, a lot of the people won't relate to your content, and that's fine. But those who will, they would be your biggest supporters and fans, and they will go out and preach about your content into other people. So all you have to do is A, start doing it, B, understand that at first you're gonna suck, and it's just part of the process, and third thing is just keep doing it. Just be persistent and play the long game, because now you see that you're getting offers from, you know, companies such as, you know, Lowe's and like big companies that want to work with you. And if you just did this 1, 2, 5, 10 videos and you would have stopped, it would never happen. So there are some, you know, some big lessons for all the entrepreneurs that are listening to your story. And also, you know, like that guy, you know, that I watched him go on and do this, you know, free landscaping, and he said, okay, this is my plan for now. I'm gonna put a year, 2 year, I don't know what exactly he had thought of, but this is my game plan, and I'm just gonna go and do it for free on top of my existing business, or just this is my marketing strategy. But I'm gonna play the long game, because if you just did one video, it probably get 10 views and that's it. But because he did it over and over and over and over and over again, the algorithm starts liking him, people start subscribing to his video, starting getting momentum, and all of a sudden, everyone wants to work with him and collaborate and do these kind of things. And now he says that he has like, what, 700,000 plus, you know, subscribers on YouTube. That's crazy. That's crazy. And that, you know, that's an opportunity in itself to grow into a 7 and 8 figure company. So just put yourself out there and don't be afraid of you not looking as professional as you want it to be honest.
That's great.
Yeah. Paul, where can people find you, man? Like, I'd love for us to continue it, and our next call would definitely be on your podcast where we can
bring you onto my podcast. So the audio podcast is the Green Industry Podcast. It's a daily show. It's Monday through Friday. We kind of branded ourselves as the morning show, encouraging entrepreneurs to plug in the morning, and we'll share tips on the business side of things. So how you do marketing and what you charge your customers and how to read a profit and loss statement and all that kind of nerdy business side of things. We cover that Monday through Friday, fresh new episode on the Green Industry Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at Green Industry Podcast. We have a little bit more of a light-hearted side over there where we actually show some content of us, you know, out mowing and cleaning up properties and doing all that fun stuff. And that's over there on Instagram at Green Industry Podcast. So thanks for having me on your program. And I definitely look forward to bringing you on my show here in the very near future and letting you share with my audience your passion for business.
Amazing, man. So guys, if you're following Paul Jamison on his Instagram and you want to duplicate his content, here's my piece of advice. Put your own self personality into that video. It's okay to copy the style. It's okay to take the trending audio sound or whatever it is, but put your personality into it, because people can smell bullshit from a mile away. And if you bring your own color into it and make it your own, this is something that will really make you stand out. So Paul, thanks again for, you know, stopping by in the Local Service Mastery Podcast. There's going to be a link down in the description to the podcast and to your Instagram. And for the rest of you guys who are watching, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're a home service business owner and want to learn how to grow into a 7 and 8 figure company by mastering lead generation, by understanding how you can generate your own leads yourself without depending on marketing agencies and other third parties, feel free to go check the link down in the description below as well. And I'll see you all here in the next one. Peace.